After weeks and weeks of rumors, Cormani McLean is in the portal, and now Colorado has lost a five-star recruit.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borber. Today's episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And like I said in my intro, Colorado has lost Cormani McLean to the transfer portal, meaning they have lost a five-star star. Realistically, this is something that I kind of saw coming, and I told back on March 14th, I think it was. I was told that Cormani to the portal was very much a possibility, and everyone was like, no. He kind of shut it down in a well-off media video, but the rumors were still lurking. The rumors were still there that he was wanting out and that he really just wasn't feeling it in Boulder. I guess you could put it that way. We'll be politically correct. Wasn't feeling it in Boulder, but realistically, if you guys remember correctly, Cormani McLean's time in Boulder did not go as planned at all. He had sort of a weird recruitment that came down to the wire with him in Miami and Florida and Colorado got in the mix and they landed him, and it was a big deal. And then he wasn't there for spring ball, and he came and he wasn't in shape, and it took him a while to get in shape. And then we're a few games into the season, he hasn't played. There was no Cormani McLean anywhere. There were no signs of Cormani McLean anywhere. And everyone was like, where is this guy? We thought he was going to be the five-star corner duo with him and Travis. We thought he was going to be this. We thought he was going to be that. And realistically, did not work out like that. And I think the thing that was most telling about Cormani McLean is, and I had John Garcia Jr., the Rivals recruiting insider who covered him closely down there in South Florida. I had him come on the show around the time that Coach Prime was asked about Cormani and why he wasn't playing. And John was saying that there's a lot of adjustment period for being in college, and Cormani was still obviously learning that. But if you guys don't remember, Coach Prime was absolutely ripped Cormani McLean when he was asked why he wasn't playing and what he needs to do. And if you guys don't remember, the exact quote was, study and prepare on what he needed to do to improve, to see more playing time. He said, be on time for meetings, show up to meetings, understand the scheme. I check film time from each player so I could see who's preparing. So if I don't see that, you will be a fool to put somebody out there who's not prepared. That goes for all of our players. And so Cormani McLean, time in and time again, was not living up to what he was supposed to be doing out there in Boulder. He was not watching film. He was not showing up to practices. And then when he did play, there was a couple bright moments here and there, but it wasn't great by any means. He ranked as, or graded as, the 832nd best corner in the country. He gave up, I think it was, let me see, it was quite a bit of catches. He was kind of getting shredded a little bit, but he, against Washington State in the last 3 games, he started the last 3 games, and it did not go well. Let me tell you that. I could tell you that just off of memory. It was well over 300 yards receiving that he gave up. The number was, so against Arizona, Washington State, and Utah, he allowed 18 catches for 380 yards, and he was targeted 25 times in coverage, and Washington State was literally seeking him out. And honestly, it just didn't work out. I think it's maybe he was young. I think we should give him the benefit of the doubt there. I think a lot of people are going to want to jump on him and call him a bust. And I would say, in terms of what people were expecting him to be in Colorado, obviously did not live up to that potential. He's only been in college 1 year. He's still a young kid. It could still work out somewhere else. It just may not work out in Colorado. So now with that being said, it's like, where is Cormani McLean going to land? Where is his proper landing spot? Where will he end up going? Because obviously he's still a 5-star talent. Teams are still going to take a swing at him. Obviously, I think this is a little bit of a reality check for him, because even though he's going to be a sought-after prospect in the portal, people are still going to be considering him a bust. So this is a little bit of a wake-up call that, hey, college football is not that easy. You don't get to just show up and do whatever you want and kind of just horse around and get to miss practices and not do what you got to do and then show up and play football. Like, this isn't high school anymore. You have to do your job. This is a job at the end of the day, and he didn't do his job. I think it was one of those things where, I mean, obviously I called it, or I told you guys it was coming March 14th, but even if you kind of looked at what was happening around spring ball, he was not practicing recently. He just returned, quote unquote, returned the other day. And I forgot which coach said it, but they were like, yeah, he has to get back into shape. So Cormani McClain was not a part of spring practices. He was not really a part of what was going on in Boulder. And I just think his time in Boulder did not go as many had planned, hoped, or expected. And now he'll have to try to make it work somewhere else. And obviously, it may work out somewhere else, or he may have to take a crack at he may have to have a come to Jesus moment, if you will. When we come back, I'm going to be talking about where I think are some possible landing spots for Mr. Cormani McLean. But first, a word from our sponsors. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Monopoly Go. Let me tell you about Monopoly Go, by the way. You guys won't want to miss out on this. It's really fun. I've been told I'm a competitive person, and that's okay. We all want to win. I maybe want to win a little too much sometimes. I have a competitive side. We all do. And my competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you play not on one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part is messing with my friends. I love to mess with them. I love to kind of razz them and kind of ruin their little Monopoly game. I could charge them rent on iconic properties, just like classic Monopoly. But now I could also rob their vault, of riches for myself. And the leaderboards show me who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. But it's not just my competitive side that loves it. You could team up with friends and people all around the world in time tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now on the App Store or Google Play for free. Welcome back to Locked on Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day and making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to this impromptu live feed. Obviously, I kind of hinted at it, like I said, back in March. I told you guys, Cormani McLean to the portal is a realistic thing. Nobody wanted to hear it, and obviously the portal was still a month away from opening, so it was like, I looks crazy. But here we are. And now it's like, okay, but where does he go? Like, what school does he land at? Well, based on my sources and what people are telling me, these are the schools that make a lot of sense to what they've heard and to what I think what everyone would just assume is probably going to fit. One of them, Florida, Miami. I know he kind of burned those bridges probably, but hey, they know that this is how the portal era works. Sometimes kids go to a different school for a bigger opportunity or a different opportunity and it doesn't work out, but you develop that relationship and you know them anyway, so it could possibly work out a second time. So look out for Florida, Miami, USC, or South Carolina or USF are the other three schools that I think make a lot of sense. USC has a completely new sort of defensive coaching staff. They have a new defensive mindset with their new defense coordinator. Obviously, Lincoln Riley moved on from Alex Grinch. So it's a big kind of issue for them. And realistically, I'm talking about where's next for Cormani McClain. But I also want to talk about where's next for Colorado and what their corner spot is. I kind of flipped those, but I'll just go from here. Obviously, I think he's going to command a huge market. And I think one of the main reasons that he's willing to transfer was Colorado has Dylan McKinney. They have DJ McKinney, who transferred him from Oklahoma State. Coach Prime is super high on him, has already said that guy's a first-round talent. He just needs to see himself. They also have Preston Hodge from Liberty. He played a lot of quality football at Liberty. They have guys like Omarion Cooper, who played and started a lot of corner for them last season. They have so many corners in that room where it's like, does losing him hurt? Yes, kind of. It does. Because it's like you wanted to get that maximum potential out of him. But if you're Colorado, you're kind of sitting there and you're like, well, he never really did anything for us yet. And it's okay. He's young. But we have so many guys. We have veterans. We have vets. And we have guys that we are confident in. McKinney's one of them. Travis Hunter's one of them. Hodge is the other. You know they could go out in the portal and get some talent if they wanted to. They have so many options right now. And realistically, they're at, I think it's 9 portal departures now. They could bring in another experienced corner to replace Cormani McLean. It's one of those things where you don't have to worry about losing one person when you're Coach Prime in Colorado, especially because he's Deion freaking Sanders. And there's Robert Livingston, who's been coaching the defensive backs of the Cincinnati Bengals, the safeties, in the NFL for like the past decade. They have secondary experience. They have legitimate secondary minds on their coaching staff. So it's one of those things where, sorry, I was reading the comment section. Miami or Oregon are also being thrown out there. We'll see. But it's one of those things where Colorado, I won't say they're set at corner. I think now they probably need to go add another one. But this is just like what the projected depth chart was. You had guys like Omarion Cooper, who I mentioned earlier. You had guys like Travis Hunter, DJ McKinney, Adam Hopkins, who is a former 4-star receiver who he's still in the roster as of today. So he's someone that could get in the mix. They have a lot of options they could go with. They have a lot of sort of different paths they could go. They could realistically add 2 corners from the portal right now because there's corners galore. I know I forgot how to say his name properly, and I'm not trying to butcher it, but Legend Cavazos, I think is how you say it. He's in the portal again. Former highly touted recruit that started his career, I believe, at Ohio State. He was a 4-star recruit from IMG, ended up at Ohio State, transferred to North Carolina, played a lot of ball this past season. Nebraska lost a corner to the portal. There are so many corners out there where I think Colorado, this isn't the worst case scenario. I think Cormani, as it stood right now, was not going to start. So basically, and I think he had more potential than a lot of the other guys they lost, but they basically lost a depth piece as what he was at this current moment. So it's one of those things where if you're Cormani McLean, you have to figure it out the next stop you go. And you just kind of have to figure out where and what you need to do to kind of better your career and better your mindset and whatever it may be that was holding you back in Boulder. Because obviously Coach Prime wanted it to work. It was just one of those things where it doesn't always work out how we imagine. When we come back, I'm going to talk more about the landing spots and why I see them as a fit. But first, a quick little break. This episode of Locked On Bus is brought to you by our sponsors over at LinkedIn. Where you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role, and that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. It helps you find professionals you can't find anywhere else. Even those who aren't actively searching for a new job might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. They're constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps write the job descriptions for you. Make the process even easier and quicker. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Excuse me. Welcome back, folks. We are talking about Cormani McClain. I touched on it a little bit just simply because I was so excited to talk about all my talking points. I forgot that I was talking about Colorado's fine at defensive back. They didn't necessarily need Cormani McClain. Now, I'm not saying they didn't want him, but they don't need him at this moment. And it's one of those things where what can you do for me now instead of what did you do for me? And he didn't do anything for them, and he doesn't do anything for them right now. So it's one of those things, life goes on. But where to? Where are these landing spots? I mentioned USC. USC has a new defensive mindset. They have a new sort of emphasis on defense after Lincoln Riley's hiring of the former UCLA defensive coordinator. It's one of those things. Ray D'Anton Lynn. He's someone who is probably going to revamp that USC defense, and USC was a average defense away from making it to the college football playoff. You add a guy like Cormani McClain, if you get the most out of him, great. Utah is another name that's been thrown out there. Utah is a very, very interesting landing spot because they pride themselves on defenses. They pride themselves on toughness. And I don't know how to say this because I don't always think going home is the right decision for some athletes. I think being at home kind of leads to off the field issues, possibly. I'm not saying this will happen with Cormani. I'm just saying sometimes when guys go home, it doesn't always work out. So if he's able to find a spot that he likes, that will push him and can keep him away from off the field distractions, I think that's a realistic possibility. Other notable schools that kind of stood out to me, USF, South Florida. He's obviously from South Florida. He may want to return home. He may like what they're doing down there at USF. He's one of those guys where he's from Lakeland, Florida. So he's probably very much welcome back in South Florida. So look for USF. South Carolina, if he wants to hop into the SEC, is another interesting one. But yeah, I think Miami and Florida could also kind of get in the mix there. Obviously, I talked about earlier, maybe he burnt those bridges, but at the same time, that's just kind of how the portal era works. Look at Dante Moore with Oregon. Obviously, he went to UCLA out of high school. There was a lot of alleged NIL deals coming his way, and then he spent his one season at UCLA and was like, yeah, I don't like it here, and I'm going back to Florida, and they welcomed him with open arms. I would expect that many programs would do the same for Cormani. Let's take a look at what schools he visited during his recruiting process, because as a recruit, he was ranked as the number 14 player in the country, number 1 corner, and number 4 player in the state of Florida. He visited Colorado. He visited Miami. He also, let's see, I want to make sure I got all the visits because, he visited Florida, Miami, Alabama. Those are unofficial. USC unofficially, Georgia unofficially. He also took an unofficial visit to BYU, so maybe he's not opposed to being in Utah. He unofficially visited Florida State, UCF. Let's see, anywhere else of note? So, yeah, it's one of those things, I think Cormani McLean is going to command a market. It's probably going to upset some people, but there's still a lot of potential there. Someone's going to take a chance on him, take a flyer. Best case scenario, you get a 5-star talent that lives up to his potential. Worst case scenario, you get someone who you were taking a chance on and it didn't really work out. You guys comment below in the comment section where you think he's going to go, because obviously I know there's a lot of sort of debate. I think he was, let's see, I'm going to read some of the comments and see what you guys had to say. He thought Coach Prime was going to cater him just because he was a 5-star. I don't know if it was necessarily Coach Prime, like he thought he was going to cater to him. But I do think he sort of had, and this is based off of me talking to other people around recruiting and college football as well. I think, and this isn't just to talk about Cormani McLean. I think whether it's 5 stars, 4 stars, even 3 stars, these guys are all big fish in little ponds, regardless of where they're from. Like, even if you're from the biggest school in Texas, you are going to go, if you play college football, you will go to a school and everyone on your team was the best player at their high school or was one of the best players at their high school. And you are no longer the guy. You are no longer the guy that gets to kind of screw around in the hallway. You are no longer the guy that gets to do whatever you want, miss class, cut class, kind of joke around all the time, because this is a job. If your coach does not perform, if Deion Sanders does not perform, he gets fired. He needs his team clicking on all cylinders. So I do think that Cormani McLean has some growing up to do. I think there was some immaturity there, but either way, it's one of those things. Let's see. Coach Prime had nothing to do with him not coming to meetings and not going to class. That's on him. It is on him. Yeah, I think that's part of the growing up aspect of it. I think he kind of got smacked in the face by learning what being an adult is. I think if all of you or all of us were to look back at our 18-year-old selves and be like, was I completely ready to handle every responsibility that came with adulthood? The answer would probably be no, and that's okay. We're still sort of kids, but at the same time, you have to understand and learn from your mistakes. You have to kind of grow from it. And I just don't know if Colorado was the right place to do it. Unfortunately for him, he's missing out on working with Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders is a Hall of Fame cornerback, the best to ever do it at his position, and he couldn't make it work. So best of luck to Cormani. I appreciate you guys for tuning in to this episode of Locked On Buffs. I will see you guys tomorrow with John Garcia. We're going to be talking about all things Cormani, all things transfer portal, and all that jazz. So it'll be a great episode. You guys won't want to miss it. Appreciate you guys. I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a great day. Enjoy your Tuesday. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.